Welcome back to the channel. In this video, since it has been quite a while, we will be revisiting the comparison between Austin and Dallas, Texas, just going over some of the basics between the two, things that you should know, so that hopefully by the end of this video, assuming you might be torn between the two, we can help you arrive at your own conclusion. Stay tuned. Hey again everybody, this is Frank with the Living in Austin group at eXp Realty. On this channel we put out new content about living in Austin, Texas, the good and yes, the bad. So consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already and ring that little bell to get notified anytime we put out a new video. We also love the reach outs we get now all the time from people just like you in need of our help when relocating to the greater Austin area. So keep them coming. Do not hesitate. Whether you are 9 days away or 90, reach out to our team, whether you shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call any day of the week, any time of day. So yes, as mentioned in this video, we are comparing Austin and Dallas, Texas. Now I acknowledge myself and my team are based out of Austin, so it's in our best interest to talk more about Austin and not about Dallas. But if you've been a longtime subscriber on this channel, you should know by now very well that we keep it brutally honest and we do not sugarcoat anything. A lot of our clients in the past have been torn between Dallas and Austin, and rightfully so. And I will go out and absolutely say, in many ways, Dallas, Texas is absolutely the better option. But of course, do not get me wrong, Austin of course has a lot going for it too, which is the purpose of this video, comparing the two, seeing what you might like about this option and what you might like about the other, so on and so forth. And for starters, let's just get right to it and talk about the affordability of both Austin and Dallas, Texas. This is absolutely 110% a category in which Dallas absolutely blows Austin out of the water regarding the respective affordability. So, as it currently stands, the median home price in Dallas, Texas is right around $420,000 compared to the city of Austin, which has a median home price of over $600,000, closer to about $610,000 to be precise. Now, generally, when relocating and choosing a new place to live, is budget the only factor in that decision? Certainly not, but I think we can all agree in most cases it is absolutely the biggest factor, at least for most people. And so if you are someone where it really does just boil down to budget, and budget alone, look no further. Dallas is surely going to be the better option for you. Now, for what it's worth, before we move on to an entirely different subject comparing the two, I will briefly touch on the subject of the market, and that is something to keep in mind as well. Yes, obviously Dallas is going to be much more affordable, but I would even argue that the market is going to be a bit easier in Dallas, Texas. Now, obviously, nationally speaking, the market is going to be what it is, whether it's a buyer's market, whether it's a seller's market. That's not going to change specifically based between Austin and Dallas, absolutely not. However, if we're talking about Austin, Texas specifically, the demand in Austin is absolutely something to keep in mind, because regardless of what the market looks like on a national scale, generally Austin, Texas will be more competitive as well. And of course, most often, Austin will be the hotter spot for relocation. Now, by no means, I am not insinuating whatsoever that the market in Dallas isn't competitive in its own right. It's just that Austin, with its demand, with its popularity, with its cool factor, with its booming economy, its tourism, its music festivals, things like that are generally going to keep the market in Austin, Texas hotter for relocation. Now, with all that said, let us naturally segue to the next subject worth mentioning, and that would be the subject of culture and politics. And we'll start with Austin, Texas first. Regarding Austin specifically, you can absolutely expect it to be more progressive. You can absolutely expect it to be more liberal. It's going to be more artistic. It's going to be more passionate. It's going to be more expressive. It is going to be a bit more hipster. It is going to be a bit more pretentious. Austin likes to keep it weird. Austin likes to call itself the live music capital of the world. Austin loves its tourism. Austin loves all of the music festivals. Austin loves the art exhibits, the museums, the crystal shops, the paddleboarding, so on and so forth. All of these things that make Austin, Texas, Austin, Texas. And truth be told, for a very long time, Austin, Texas was authentically weird. However, I am going to keep it real, as I always do on this channel, and remind you that Austin, Texas has changed a lot in the past 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 years, but especially just in the past 5 or 10 alone. And why is that? Well, mostly, in my opinion, all of the tech companies flocking here, creating a culture of transplants and relocations, essentially meaning that a lot of the people you meet in Austin, Texas are not going to be from Austin, Texas, or the state of Texas anymore. And so naturally it's turned into this weird blend of this old hippie college town once upon a time that is now very commercialized and corporate. And yes, of course, Californians aplenty. Now regarding Dallas, Texas, I wouldn't dare say that it doesn't have its own fair share of relocation either. However, Dallas, perhaps because of its size, perhaps because of its history, perhaps because of its location, has always felt more authentic, right? If you're going to be in Dallas, you definitely still feel like you're in Texas. And I'm not trying to say that it's super old-fashioned. I'm not trying to say that it's out of touch or sleepy or anything by any stretch of the imagination. Dallas is poppin', and people love to live in Dallas. But as opposed to Austin, Dallas is definitely this Texan city hub, whereas in my opinion, Austin is going to feel more like a miniature California in the state of Texas. Are there pretentious people in Dallas too? Absolutely. Is there a huge foodie culture there now? Of course. But what I will say in spite of that is if you are relocating from another state and you are wanting to go to Texas for everything that Texas has, the super warm people, the Southern culture, all of that good stuff, Dallas is absolutely going to make more sense. Now, on the other hand, let's say you have to move to Texas, and maybe you're not too thrilled, as many people wouldn't be, about Texas or the Southern culture, because I'll admit, it's not for everybody, and maybe you prefer a place that might remind you a bit more of wherever you're coming from. That is certainly going to be Austin, Texas. So either way, it does boil down to your own personal preferences, which walk of life you're coming from, and what your tastes are. Now, I will briefly mention the subject of politics. However, I will not get too deep into it because that is absolutely not what this channel is for. So a lot of people already know that Austin, Texas is a blue dot in a sea of red that is otherwise the state of Texas. And a lot of people automatically assume that, okay, if I'm going to Dallas, it's going to be conservative. If I'm going to Austin, it's going to be liberal. And in some cases, that's true. But a lot of people do not expect Dallas to be as balanced as it is, which in my opinion is very attractive, at least if you're not someone who's an extremist one way or an extremist the other. Now, granted, similar to most any other place in the country, as soon as you leave the city limits of Dallas, it is going to be absolutely a much more conservative place to live. But truth be told, whether you're blue, whether you're red, if you live within the city limits of Dallas, Texas, it is going to be pretty balanced. And I cannot say the same for Austin, Texas. Austin is 150,000% remarkably liberal when you are within the city limits. And then because of that, once you start leaving the city of Austin, that's when you'll find it being more balanced. Now, rest assured, there are cities, towns, suburbs outside of the city of Austin that certainly lean to the right. But I'm just saying, when you are generally comparing Austin and Dallas, Texas, Dallas will be balanced to begin with, more conservative as you get out. Austin will be more liberal to begin with, and then more balanced as you get out, with different pockets of conservatism sprinkled in. All right, up next, let's briefly talk about the subjects of the jobs and traffic, simply because there really isn't that much to say, but it is still worth noting. So regarding jobs, truth be told, Dallas and Austin are actually going to mimic each other a lot. People automatically assume that Dallas is going to be more manufacturing, oil, gas, things like that, and Austin is going to be just 100% tech, but they both have a lot of those things in common, and Dallas, no doubt, certainly has its fair share of tech too. Now, what might differentiate Austin just a little bit is that while yes, it is now largely tech, you are going to see a lot of jobs in education and healthcare as well. Now, regarding the subject of traffic, that is where it gets interesting, because many people would argue that because Dallas is just so much bigger, naturally, mathematically, it is going to have way more traffic. However, I would beg to differ to some extent at least, and here's my reasoning. Austin, Texas, as mentioned, it was just a small college town once upon a time, and it evolved in population and popularity quicker than the city's infrastructure could ever even hope or attempt to keep up with. So nowadays, Austin, Texas is still a relatively small city, especially when compared to Dallas. And so what it looks like is this endless construction trying to keep up with all of the people relocating here all the time, which means you're going to have a ton of traffic all the time, almost comparable these days in some ways to Los Angeles, rush hour starting as early as 1, 2, or 3 in the afternoon. And so Austin knows this, and they're trying to fix the traffic by adding more construction. But when they add more construction, it feeds the traffic and it becomes this vicious cycle. So I'm not absolving Dallas by any means of having its own rush hour or traffic, but its infrastructure and its size is better equipped, in my opinion, to handle the traffic. You are absolutely still going to have your headaches, do not get me wrong, but the infrastructure, in my opinion, is a bit more of a well-oiled machines than the chaos in Austin, Texas. Now, real quickly before moving on, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. If we've been providing any value for you, consider clicking the like button as it helps our channel grow. Remember to subscribe, and lastly, share our content with anybody you know who's wanting to learn more about living in Austin, Texas. All right, moving right along regarding Austin and Dallas, Texas, let's talk about the subjects of travel and scenery. So, I've got some bad news for you guys. Let's say you're coming from a place like Utah. Let's say you're coming from the Bay Area. Let's say you're coming from Colorado, Oregon, Washington State, so on and so forth. If you are planning on going to either Dallas or Austin, Texas, the terrible news is neither of them are going to be nearly as pretty as any of the aforementioned places. Reason being, just a reminder, the state of Texas for the longest time, yeah, it has some hill country, don't get me wrong, but otherwise it is historically farm and ranch land, and that means, folks, it is very, very flat in the state of Texas. So yes, I am absolutely going to be blunt about the fact that you should not expect much scenery whatsoever regarding Dallas or Austin, Texas. Now, what I will say, when comparing the two specifically, Austin might have a bit more of what you're looking for. Does Dallas have its fair share of nature and pretty spots to look at? 100% yes. But Austin, Texas has always kind of prided itself or touted itself as being this hip, active lifestyle type of place that's going to have an abundance of lakes, that is going to have quite a bit of nature, and most certainly those rolling hills, specifically speaking, the Texas Hill Country, which yes, bleeds into the western part of Austin, Texas. So ultimately, am I splitting hairs? Absolutely, because as mentioned, Dallas does have its fair share of beauty, but Austin stereotypically even is very well known for its nature and its scenery. Now, regarding the subject of travel, this is where it gets a bit interesting and definitely boils down to personal preference. So, as we all know, the state of Texas is absolutely massive. You can drive 5, 10, 13 hours sometimes and still be in Texas. So what's attractive about Dallas is that if you are wanting to get out of state, Dallas is going to be better, say, for road trips. Now, regarding Austin, Texas, it is very central in this gigantic state of Texas, which means Austin will be better if you're wanting to explore San Antonio, if you're wanting to take a trip on the weekend to Houston, if you're going to want to go and spend some time in Dallas. Austin as well is a bit better located if you're wanting the access to the beaches. Hopefully not Galveston Beach near Houston. That's well known as the worst beach. I'm going to save you some time in case you're wanting to go there. But I'm talking about Corpus Christi, North Padre Island, South Padre Island as well. Austin is definitely preferably located for trips like that. But as mentioned, yes, it is in the center of this gigantic state. So if you're wanting to go out of state and you're not planning on flying, expect a few more hours at least to your overall ETA. Now, lastly, I am ever so briefly and vaguely, to be honest, going to talk about the things to do in Austin and Dallas, Texas. Truth be told, I could make an entire long video listing specific things to do in either city, but as mentioned earlier in this video, it does boil down to subjective taste. Dallas, in many cases, is going to be a bit more fancy, a bit more upscale. Austin, in many cases, is going to be a bit more active, a bit more artsy, a bit more progressive. If you're super into restaurants, for example, Dallas might be your overall pick. If you're super into the tourism and the party scene and the festivals, Austin might be your overall pick. Otherwise, yes, as mentioned, they are going to have a lot in common. If you want wineries, breweries, distilleries, if you want museums, if you want history, bar hopping, eateries, nature, so on and so forth, they're both going to share a lot of those qualities. One might just have a bit more of this thing, and the other might just have a bit more of that thing. Except crime, homelessness, and panhandling, I would argue Austin is going to have more of that for sure. So there you have it. Just a general overview of the two cities, comparing some of the basics between them, and hopefully we've helped you arrive at your own conclusion as to whether or not Dallas or Austin might be right for you. If it is Dallas, rest assured we know a great team of agents who are based out of there, and of course, naturally, if it is Austin, that is what we are here for, helping people just like you relocate to the greater Austin area, making that move as smooth as possible and finding that perfect spot. But again, the only way we could do that is by you reaching out to us, so do not hesitate. Whether you are 9 days away or 90, reach out to our team. Whether you shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call, any day of the week, any time of day. It is what we love to do. And as mentioned on this channel, we put out new content about living in Austin, Texas, the good and yes, the bad. So remember to subscribe if you haven't already and ring that little bell to get notified anytime we put out a new video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Click the like button if we've been providing any value for you. Share it with anybody you know. And until the next one, you guys, my name is Frank. This is Living in Austin, Texas, and we will absolutely catch you later.